Hello.
Hello.
I haven't done that in a while. Hello. Welcome to the Story Studio podcast.
Hello.
Wait, way to bring it down already, dude.
Oh,
I don't want too much excitement.
I may
Show
talk less today because my something cool is that I recorded like a shit ton of audiobook yesterday, and I think I'm paying the price. So
oh man,
that's what you're hearing. But today we're going to talk about anthologies and serials. It's kind of fun because we've never had the show managed for us before. We've always just been like, okay, it's 3:00. We should have started now. What should we talk about? And we just kind of make it up. And so we have a few categories now, and this one is from the guys' answer category. So it's answer about anthologies and serials. So you guys asked, and I guess we're going to respond. So
we're going to answer.
Well, this actually came in through email. It's just a question, but it seemed like a meatier discussion than email, and it seems like we get, I mean, even almost 10 years after we started this whole thing, we still get questions about
we invented
serialization,
serials, right? We did.
And
you're to blame for Captain Crunch.
Yeah, Dave and I had an interview earlier this week that was like 90% about serials. It seemed like, though there's still a very, including the question, how long should a serial should? How long should a?
I thought he avoided that. Did he ask that one?
Oh yes, like right
okay.
when you no, actually he had asked it, and then you said watch. That'll be his next question. I'm like, oh, I think you were typing while he asked.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, with love for any of you who are wondering that, because I understand the need to like try and find, well, this is working. What should I do? But let's please stop ever fucking asking that question again, because it doesn't make any sense. How long should a story be? How long should that isn't logical. So it should be however long it takes to tell a story.
So a lot of this is I don't know. It really is a discussion more than an answer, because people will ask very pointedly, what is this answer for serial? And then they'll fill in like a couple of variables, but they're not, it matters so much. And it doesn't even just matter with genre conventions, which is a big one. Who are you as an author? What else do you have coming out? What are you trying to build as a career? So we could talk a little bit about different ways of doing this.
Yeah, the audiobooks that I read were The Fiction Formula and an upcoming book that's TBD on, can I say what it's about?
Yeah.
It's about like the elements of a classic. And there was so much like, well, it depends if this, it depends if this. So like I was reviewing all of those, and because there's no hard and fast answers to anything in the creative field. There's just tendencies and maybe best practices. And so trying to suss out the like salient details from any of those and not be like this vague read that's not worth anything to anybody was an interesting balance to walk. So do you want to do something cool before we launch in?
I got a quick one. So have either of you seen the movie or seen the title on Netflix for a movie called The Little Hours?
No.
Okay, so
I've heard of the title. I don't know.
I have no confidence recommending anything to Dave. Johnny, I think you should totally check it out. You could watch it with Robin. I don't want to say really anything about it other than when you see all the people in it, you're going to be like, how the hell did I not hear about this movie before? And I'll just tell you one person who's in it. I'll tell you two people because both are relevant. So Alison Brie is in it. And I know you like her. I like her a lot. I think she's one of the best actresses working in the whole streaming game. She has a lot of shit out there. And also Aubrey Plaza and
like her
Nick
too.
Offerman and Fred Armisen.
Yeah.
Dave Franco.
Stop it.
Is Nick Offerman seriously in it?
Yes, he really is. Okay, well, since Dave already did that, and Molly Shannon's in it.
Why does it matter who's in it? Is that a spoiler?
No, it's because okay, and John C. Reilly is in it. I'm gonna just tell you the pitch real quick, and then you decide if you want to watch it. It's a super modern cast. That's why it matters, because these are not like Jeremy Irons isn't in this. Right? So
in it?
Is not. It's a
what a strange person to specifically exclude.
Well, you'll see it in a moment. Like,
is that on the poster?
No.
Jeremy Irons not in this movie.
Nor is John Malkovich.
Dave Franco and Jeremy Irons can't really be in the same movie ever. Like, one's a very classical.
Oh, I think they should. That would be awesome.
Actor, and one is a very modern actor.
Them and Sir Ian McKellen.
So anyway, this is the cast, and Aubrey Plaza and Allison Brie and this other actress who is in Easy, that other show I was talking about, all play nuns in the 1200s. And John C. Reilly is the priest, and it's like it's a modern script with modern actors, and it's kind of a sex comedy, but in the nunnery, and it's just it's funny. Like it caught me by. It's not funny. It's not like.
I like comedy, sex, and nuns, and this just hits all.
It is supposed to be funny, right?
No, yeah, it is funny. So it had me because I didn't know.
So hard to find all three of those on Pornhub.
The reason I watched this is because the guy had his follow-up is like one of the things they're heavily promoting right now, which is Horse Girl with Allison Brie, which I also watched. I saw that last night. I did not like it, actually.
I actually wanted to see that one.
Yeah, we could talk about it. I'll tell you why I didn't like it.
Right.
But it does some things really well, and I was interested, but it lost me, and I think it should have been better. But Little Hours really surprised me, and it made me laugh, and it just kept going in places I didn't quite expect. And the opening is you just see Allison Brie, you see the three nuns walking toward the camera, and they're looking all nunly. And
Nunly.
Yeah, this dude who's like picking turnips just says good morning to them, and they turn to him, they're like, "Fuck you, shut up. We told you not to fucking look at us." And they start throwing stuff at him.
Oh, Dan beat me to the joke.
And then I'm just like, oh wow, this is not the movie I expected to be watching right now, but I'm really happy.
Wait, it's a movie? It's not a show.
Yeah, it's a movie. You're done in an hour and 20 minutes.
I did done in 20 minutes.
Yeah, very low commitment here, which is awesome.
Dan
anyway.
beat me to the nunchucks question, so I won't ask that. I actually don't really have one, so I won't dig. I'll let Dave go if you have anything.
No, well, the only thing I saw this week was
Your Own Misery.
Alita Battle Angel. Did you see that?
I did see it.
Did you like it?
I did like it.
It's been kind of in the orbit of my list, but I haven't really kind of committed on it.
Yeah, did you like it, Dave?
It was okay. It wasn't great. It was a very generic story. I like the world building. I think like most things like this, I would have liked it better as like a 10-part TV series.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I would like to see a sequel. I mean, I liked it it was a popcorn movie, but I know the history of it and all that, and I'm glad it was made. I don't know that it didn't do very well in the United States. It did all right enough internationally though. I
do like that. It felt like a James Cameron, Robert Rodriguez mashup, was what it is. But it really felt like that. And I don't know. So Johnny, the battle Alita, right? She's voice acted mostly, but it's the woman who's going to be the surrogate for Julia and Joel in Parenthood, which now I can't
plays like, and she plays like a kid in the movie, basically, like a teenager. And I did. The one thing I did hear about it before I saw it though was when the trailers first come out, a lot of people are like, oh my God, they made her eyes big like anime, and they fucking hated it.
I loved that, actually.
Right. And I think, I don't remember if it was James Cameron or one of them basically said, at one point, they considered changing, and then they're like, oh, fuck it. No, not changing it. And they're glad that they stuck to their guns.
Yeah, it's one of the things.
Wait. That's kind of a hollow declaration, unless I know why. Like, well, no. Like, was there a reason for it?
Well, because a lot of people complained about it.
Yeah, and like Sonic got totally redesigned. Like they dropped the Sonic.
I'm glad Sonic got redesigned. That was an ugly ass Sonic.
Oh, me too. It was.
Well, now it's a masterpiece.
Well, I mean,
it got good reviews.
It got good reviews. It did its job. People went to see it. Like,
it's probably as good or better than Angry Birds.
I've decided against that movie before watching it. I'm prejudiced against Sonic the Hedgehog movie.
Yeah, I would watch it.
I would watch it too.
I wouldn't watch it on my own.
Right, exactly. But for kids looking, I mean, Sonic's kind of perfect because people our age grew up with Sonic, and we have kids. I mean, mine are a little too.
Not Johnny. He hates video games.
No, I don't hate video games.
But you didn't grow up with them in the same way.
No, I can still beat my son in Street Fighter. That's all I got left. Oh, that just killed the conversation. All right, no more talk
we
about
want to talk
video
video
games.
game. Okay, so Call of Duty, like, okay, I've my son kicks my ass at Fortnite, but I've always been better at Call of Duty than him, and he just recently started playing Call of Duty. He got it for Christmas, and
Call of Duty or Call of Booty?
Call of Booty, yeah. So he got better than me like within a few days. Like he had like just a shit ton of kills, and I was just so annoyed. But then I was like, you know what? Because he's all bragging and stuff. So I said, 1v1 me, bro, 1v1, and I whooped his ass. So I'm still the king.
So your something cool is that you beat your son.
I beat my son's ass in Call of Duty.
It's funny if you just stop it. I beat my son.
You should be really, really proud, dude. That's a really good thing.
I should find that clip of Dave saying, "Could you guys just come over and raise my son?"
I still think that we should be collecting clips. I think it's fun.
Well, I think so too. And since we have a team who's so on top of it now, I would say, Jen, see what you can do about pulling some Dave clips. Although it's not as fun as on Worst Show Ever.
That's true.
That's where
should we do a Worst Show Ever just like once a quarter?
I think we should do it whenever it's possible, but we can't get it.
If we do one of these early enough, I could do one. But
maybe we could do one before.
Ruins everything.
Maybe we could do one before this podcast.
You know what might actually make everyone in the studio super happy is if we did a special Thursday Worst Show Ever and just recorded it during our normal meeting time and that we all like.
I like that idea.
We could all poke the bear. Like we could all say just like try to get Dave ranting. That could be really fun.
No, I don't like that as much. I like the idea of us holding Worst Show Ever and people watching it during the showtime. All right, so anthologies and serials. So we just want to sort of run down some of the questions. Is that the best way to approach this?
Well, the way I would start this is we had some questions coming in from email, and there was some overlap. And it was, what's the nature of stories for anthologies? And one of the questions was like, you guys should release an anthology, and everybody in the studio could write a different episode and put it out that way. And no.
Why don't you start by defining anthology?
Right. Yeah. So the reason we can't do that is because anthologies by nature are not especially commercial, and none of us have a big enough name to pull that off. So like Stephen King's been anthologies before where he'll drop one story and then there's a bunch of other horror authors who will drop a story. And those are never going to be as successful as a Stephen King short story thing. So there are reasons to do them for sure. But as a commercial product, I'm never going to say, yes, you should do an anthology. So absolutely, like we actually do have some anthologies that will involve all of us or whoever wants to participate in the future. But those are projects that are kind of like, on the back burner because there's no reason to, we have to put our commercial interests first right now. That's all there is to it. But even as early as next year or late this year, we have a lot of serial stuff coming back. We have an anthology series. So if you remember a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, my Something Cool was for a show called Easy. And that's an anthology series. So the way it works is that
Is it easy like a Sunday morning?
It is exactly like a Sunday morning. That's actually the intro music they use.
'Cause I'm easy.
You know what, Johnny? We should have like a list of like prompts to see how many songs we can get Dave to sing.
Well, I was just going to say we should have the clips of every single time that he's broken out like that.
That was my worst one. I can't do Lionel Richie.
Yeah, that one wasn't
But
good.
who can do Lionel Richie except Lionel? Okay, so that show has different stories, and they're kind of related, but not necessarily so. A season will have 8 episodes, and each of the episodes will be its own story with a beginning, middle, and an end, and in no way dependent on any of the other stories. Although you might see a character from one story participate in another story, but really they are separate stories. So the very first thing I ever wrote that I published was called 4 Seasons, and it was exactly that. It was 12
Stealing Stephen King's book titles.
That's different seasons, dog.
Oh, okay.
There are 4 seasons, it turns out. And the premise of that story or stories, I wanted to write a short story every month. And so for a year, starting in January, I would write a short story. And I didn't really know where it was going. I knew they each needed to stand on their own. And
I read that book all the way through.
You did, I remember. So each story needed to stand on its own and take place on its own, be completely independent. But by the time you got to the end, you realized there was a bigger story being told. And I would tell that story a lot differently now. In fact, Bonnie and I have talked about telling that story.
I would kill at least 2 babies.
A lot differently now. But I was making it up as I... Thank you, Dave. I was making it up as I went along. And you can kind of tell, like, the storycraft just isn't there in the same way as it would be now. But you can also have anthology series, and that means that they change every single episode or season. So 2 examples would be Black Mirror, which is an anthology series, episode to episode. Every single episode is different.
And the Fargo TV show.
And the Fargo TV show, American Horror Story, but those are different. So Fargo and American Horror Story are different is in that every season is a completely different story, and they may have like some of the cast playing new characters in American Horror Story. I don't know that Fargo does that. Fargo will pick different timelines within the world, and so that generally requires an entirely new cast from season to season, where American Horror Story has kind of like a rotating cast.
Well, they pick different timelines. They just have people playing different characters. So they have no problem having somebody play somebody in the 1920s and the 1980s.
Yeah, that's really awesome. So those are examples of anthologies as a season, and Black Mirror would be an anthology series where every episode is unique. Like, they're just totally different stories. And we have series either out or in development that match all those different versions. So anthology as a concept, where you're not following one storyline over and over and over, but you kind of create a premise that can be repeated, I think is an excellent idea. But I think having it dependent on the voices it rarely works in books, and it rarely works in film or television. I don't know if you guys remember this. The last time I saw them try it in a big way on Showtime, pre-streaming, they had, like, I think it was called Masters of Horror, and they would have, like, Clive Barker would do an episode, or not Clive Barker, Wes Craven, sorry. Didn't mean
Well, I mean, they did a relaunch of Twilight Zone recently.
Yeah, but that failed, like Jordan Peele's, right? And
I didn't see it. It was on CBS On Demand, so.
I didn't see it either, but I did not hear good things.
Well, the original Twilight Zone is the best anthology series, I think, ever.
Agreed. And if Black Mirror had held its strength, I think it's a worthy competitor, but I think it's been a little uneven. The best but you know what? So is Twilight Zone, honestly. It's not like every Twilight Zone is like amazing. There's just some real classics there. But anyway, that's an anthology versus a serial, where a serial, we've talked about this just, oh my God, so much, but it's a story. Okay, let's talk about what a serial is not, because that's where most people get this wrong. Even now, serials online have been a successful way to sell stories for almost a decade. And a lot of people get it wrong, and you see why they get it wrong when you read the reviews, and they got it wrong because you can see, even if a book is fresh, it's tanked in the rankings, and when it's old, it never rises. And that's because they take one story and they break it up into pieces. And
well, I will say magazines can still do that and serialize it, and it'll work for those stories. But we're talking serials as
we're talking about, point of purchase. The difference between a magazine too, that's a great point, Dave. But the difference between a magazine is that that's a purchase that you're making anyway, and the continuation of a story is a by the way. It certainly helps to keep the subscription sticky and all that. But with
sticky, what magazine are you buying?
But with a book, that's a point of purchase decision. You need somebody to finish one book and then go and make a purchase decision on the next one. Now, I think that one of the elements here that actually warps the reality is KDP Select. Because if you're in KDP Select, the rules are kind of different because your book can be split into pieces and you don't really realize that that's not the way it should be done because somebody is immediately just going to click on the next book because there's no friction, there's no resistance there. But there would be if they had to go purchase that. They'd be like, fuck this guy, with his broken up ass way of telling
Ending in the
story.
middle of a sentence.
Yeah, like that's not okay. And so I think that's not, good for you if you can ride the algorithms right now and make it and Select doing it that way. But I think it's really temporary. And as soon as there are market corrections, it's going to be a difficult way to sell books. So I think that both anthologies and serials are something that require a lot of craft, both in the front end, in how you're organizing them, and then in the execution itself. In fact, right now, I've been thinking a lot about a serial that Bonnie and I will be writing for next year. And actually, it's not even it's more of an anthology for sure, but we're structuring it like a serial. And I've been thinking about that structure a lot. And Bonnie, I see you're here. I have something cool to tell you later because it's all about structure. It's like, if you'll notice, there's a lot more of this coming out in streaming. I think one of Dave's very favorite things, not from last year, but the year before, was The Haunting of Hill House, which is yet another anthology series. So the new one is coming out like anytime.
Well, it's an anthology series, but it's also a serial.
Yes, that's correct. But so season to season, but you could say that about Fargo or
true.
American Horror Story anyway. The structure of an anthology series is usually going to be serialized. What makes it an anthology is that season to season it's different.
Okay.
So what's that guy's name who did Gerald's Game and
Mike something.
Flanagan.
Flanagan, thank you. Yeah,
he's Dr.
great.
Sleep. Have you watched that yet, Johnny?
No,
because I've heard good things about it.
Well, actually, so have I. Actually, I think you shared a good thing.
We should make that our next thing we all watch because I want an excuse to watch it.
Yeah,
I'll watch it.
I'd watch it.
Okay.
Yeah, anthology.
Well, why? Let's go to this. So why do them, right? Because this is a know your why. So if you aren't doing them and I'm talking anthologies, why would you do them if they don't sell well or anything? Like under what circumstances would you do it?
Well, it's a good way to introduce people to other authors, and if you get like newsletter, like I know romance authors do it. If they get all their lists to sort of promote it, you can sell some books that way.
Yeah, like people buy that way versus a book bundle though, because a lot of people don't understand the idea of an anthology.
No, I think you have to be really careful. It's the same as when we used episodes and seasons. You have to do things to signal to your reader exactly what it is. So Johnny, we have our anthology that is now still in the character phase, but that we'll write for next year, you and me. The structure of that is pretty specific. The way we're trying to organize that is that it's going to be 10 parts. It will be like a limited series. So very much like, Watchmen, assuming they never actually do season 2. If they hold to their word and they don't do a season 2, that's just a limited series. It's, hey, watch this show. Or Chernobyl, because I know Chernobyl's not getting a sequel.
Hey, you never know, man.
So
Chernobyl
let's say
2 Electric Boogaloo is a go.
Chernobyl is a limited series on HBO. There will never be a season 2. I think it's like 10 episodes. And
they could do one about 3 Mile Island or whatever that was.
Well, I guess they could turn that into a limited series. Anyway, Johnny and I are writing something that is a limited series, but we're also, instead of creating it like a serial, the way we're trying to organize it is that each of the episodes could stand on their own as just a story, just a really good story that you would want to buy about this person. And they'll all kind of link together and tell this grand, amazing story. But if you only read the episode about, woman number 4 in our lineup, then that would be a completely rewarding experience. Now, that's not necessarily the very best way to organize an anthology, but it absolutely works for us because we're trying to sell books. And the way selling serials or anything serialized is just kind of fucky on Amazon, because you have to ask people to buy individual purchases. So a 99-cent book, you know, if it's 15,000 words, maybe that works. But for Johnny and I, like, first of all, we can't tell a story in 15,000 words. It's just not going to happen. And so
that's your author's note.
We're right. We're making ours longer and making each episode standalone, because I think we could tell a better story there. But I think we would handle stuff a lot differently if we could do the 99-cent play, or ideally, what I know Dave and I have something coming out either very late this year or early next year that will be serialized in the old school way that we serialized it, I think. But we still have barriers there. We still have friction, because what we would love to do is charge $5.99 and let people buy it once and then drop new episodes. But we can't do that, and there's really no good way to do it. I don't want to do $2.99 episodes for that. So that's still something that we've got to figure out in Area 51 and figure out how to market those books. But with
2-episode bundles.
But with the way that Johnny and I are doing ours, we're kind of future-proofing it and trying to outthink it and just structure things differently from the beginning.
Okay, so I think that at this point, the whole idea is that serials, as the market exists right now, are largely like a stylistic choice, or it's not really, because you can't do the serialization experience. So it's, do you want to tell a story in that way? Do your readers want to consume a story in that way?
Are we discounting like Wattpad? We're just talking about books specifically.
Yeah, I think most of our audience is talking about, you know,
getting some profit, actually. Right?
Yeah, it's like the retail experience of being a storyteller, right? And so that's a big deal, because the difference between, I mean, we've seen Wattpad, there's no conversion there. So if
it's
you
helped
want,
some people get book deals, but that's, you know, that's rare. And
it's a lightning
specifically
strike.
Talking about trying to sell your
it's
own
a lightning strike.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's a lot of value in practice, and I don't think a lot of people capitalize on it in the way that they could. So if you're trying to figure out how to tell a great serial, I actually think that that's a great idea to go to Wattpad and tell a serial. But don't try to take your pen name there and import it and expect paid customers. Just think of that as, I'm going to spend a year seeing how people respond to my work, seeing what resonates. You know, Dave and I did that. It was, in our day, it was, we were blogging and we had Available Darkness, and it came out on an actual WordPress site once a week. But I think that if we were coming up now, like if Wattpad existed then, I could see Dave and I not doing that, putting it on Wattpad and getting a big following there, and then getting smart enough to maybe start a pen name, you know, before we started selling books. But I think that you always want to look at why, like that's what Johnny said, why tell a serial? And for it, even within the company, the reasons are very different. So Dave and I have a serial because we have an idea that we want to explore, and we are pretty confident that this is the best way to organize that story. Joel has a serial that he's going to do, and it's because he's going to work within a world that we have open and complement something that is also happening in the studio. So it's more of an energetic alignment thing. And Johnny and I are doing one that's totally different, that's going to be available individual purchase and organized that way. We don't actually, Johnny and I don't have to figure out what shenanigans are best with 6 episodes or 99 cents or $2.99 or anything. Like, we'll be able to just do our story. And the thing I'm working on with Bonnie hopefully will be the same thing. So it's just a matter of really thinking about not only where you want your book now, but what you want the lifespan of it to be. And that means, like, how are you going to package that later? You know, if Dave and I decide to do 6 episodes at 99 cents each, we're just kind of killing time, because that's obviously not what we want. So that's just there for live people. And then what we really want is the season, you know, for $5.99. Just like, I mean, really that hasn't changed since 2011. It's the same thing. It's just, how do we get what we want as storytellers without delivering a shitty experience for the reader?
Yeah, our biggest problem with selling individual episodes for $3 is that you'd basically be paying $18 for a book that people could just wait and get for $6, and it feels like you're ripping the reader off, and we don't want to do that.
Oh, and you're opposed to that? Okay, well, if you have a problem ripping people off, then yeah, that is.
I mean, we all know the best, and this really worked for Dave and I. The very best thing about serials is that you do have more releases, and that doesn't necessarily mean more money, but it does mean that people who are reading your work become a bigger part of your life. You become more of a habit, you become more of a familiar name, and there's tremendous value in that. And I would
Can I get them to move in with me and do dishes?
No, because you won't think they do it right. Like
Yeah,
maybe if they would just let you let them do it, perhaps. But because they know you'd be behind them telling them that they're loading the dishwasher wrong, no. Yeah, Johnny.
Well, so I was just looking at some of our notes, and quickly, thank you to Mark and Terry and Emma who gave us some of these questions. So thank you guys for doing that. If people have questions like this, shoot them to us. But then specifically, I don't know if I should really mention names. So I'll just say that we have some of the people who sent in questions are doing a series where there's a new mystery box that leads to the next episode, like cliffhangers and stuff. And they're wondering whether they should do a serial or not. And so should we address that specific?
Yeah, well, I like the idea of making it serialized, but there's one thing you have to focus on. If you're going to serialize your content, then you have to realize that it is not one story. And it's okay to have background mythology, and you could serialize that. But you can't serialize the smaller things from story to story. So if you set things up in the first chapter, and we know what the stakes are, we know what everybody wants in that particular episode, that stuff all needs to be closed by the end of that episode.
So you have stories
like a
with
proper pilot.
Stories. Yes.
Yeah. What did you say, Dave?
Like a proper pilot.
Yeah. You know what? I love that Dave said that. So what you can do to prepare to really figure out how this is done, watch a lot of pilots. You don't have to watch the shows. So I've actually probably watched 4 or 5 pilots so far this year that I'll never watch the show. Either you ever hear of Longmire?
No.
Yeah, I heard of it.
Okay, so I finally got that. My dad recommended that to me like 2 years ago, and it's just been on the list ever
Bonnie
since.
said, yes, exclamation point. I guess she's a fan.
Yeah, so it's a little networky feeling as opposed to...
It was on a network.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh,
Like
did Netflix
TBS
buy it?
or TNT or something.
Oh, because Netflix is claiming it as an original.
I thought it was on a network. I could be wrong.
Well, either way.
Unless they bought like a later season.
They probably bought it, and then they get to say Netflix.
I'll look so we can stop conjecture. Go ahead, continue.
All right, so that's interesting. Okay, they picked it up after it was canceled and made the final season, and then they got to claim it's a Netflix original for all 6 seasons.
It was on A&E. Okay.
Okay, so that's interesting that Bonnie says it's great, but you need to get a little further past the pilot, because I actually wouldn't get past the pilot. But I'm using the pilot as an example of a good pilot. It is a good pilot. I just didn't care enough about the world or the characters to keep going, and I didn't care. I wasn't that invested, and it had a very TV-like feel compared to something that was more cable or streaming. It didn't feel as modern as I would have liked. Too many choices. But I totally see why my dad loved it. Like totally. I even called it popcorn. Like it was just very much his vibe. But it's a well-structured pilot, and the way that it delivers exposition is really great, because it skirts the line, because there are a few moments where characters are like, hey, Bill, you've been a drunk sheriff for the last year since your wife died. But it's not quite like that.
Hey, Bill, exposition entered here.
I want to do a purposely bad exposition book and show that's just like that.
I actually would really enjoy that. or examples of really terrible exposition, I bet we could find some YouTube videos that have clips.
Well,
Hey,
you know
bartender, why don't you give me a whiskey? Because I'm still mourning the death of my daughter.
You know how Mulholland Drive, you have to, the spoiler from Mulholland Drive here coming, you have to hang.
I have not seen it. So
okay, well then you better close your ears as well as anybody else.
You're going to forget it.
Oh, no, it's just a joke anyway. I'm not even going to bother because I'm realizing I'm clearing the way for a joke. So just forget it. It's fine.
Well, anyway, that's a good pilot because it does give you a lot of information that you really need to know and could be, forced down your throat, but it's not elegant, but it's serviceable enough. The thing to pay attention to is how all the major things need to get wrapped up within an episode, and then you establish the world, you establish the wounds, and you don't have to watch 8 seasons of everything to figure out how serials are done. If you watch the first 3 episodes of 5 different shows, in fact, when Bonnie was here the last time, we actually did that. We watched a few episodes of Breaking Bad and we watched a few episodes of Mad Men, and they weren't in order. It's not like we watched the first one and the second one and the third one. We watched we did watch the This Is Us pilot, just because I think that's extraordinarily structured. I would actually recommend everyone listening to this watch the This Is Us pilot. Even if you don't watch the show, the pilot is just one of the best pieces of TV I've ever seen. And it made Bonnie cry, which was awesome. Not that I like to see Bonnie cry, but because
well, I think we know. I think you've already said all you need to say.
Yeah. That's what Bonnie just put. Bonnie just put in the chat.
When you watch This Is Us, do you feel like I might have given them ideas?
No, I just think it's really human storytelling. I really love that show. And I do think that the pilot is really worth watching, just if you're a storyteller, even if that's the only
I will watch it.
You've watched it already,
no,
right?
I've not seen it. Someone spoiled the ending, but now I've forgotten it, so I can go
Yeah,
watch
there you go. Knew it.
Oh, dude, Dave, please watch that. Watch it. Right. Please watch it. You will love what they do. It's so good. But just watching pilots is a great exercise as a storyteller, period. But if you want to write serials, then it is a great way to understand how you've got all these bigger questions, but you did tell a complete story.
All right, so it's sort of sounding like if I could, since there was that big pause there, so if I could sort of sum up, like we've run through some of the ideas to do or not do serials, i.e., I think it's more of a style of storytelling than like a choice that's intended to like make you money above and beyond the way that you would if you just wrote books normally. But that anthologies would be more of like, I would say, a passion project, or to Dave's point about you could use it to bundle a bunch of people together and get attention that way. But I haven't seen that work consistently enough that I would want to try it. I've seen it occasionally work. And I think that would be something that you would do more. Unless, actually, Sean, you may disagree since we're kind of doing one, but what's the reason that we're doing one given these shortcomings?
Well, okay, so stuff for us is just, it's a little different. And I realized, I realized this recently, that some of these questions are kind of hard for us to answer because we are often being asked about a retail experience, and the way our studio is operating now, it's more of a wholesale design. We're thinking about, 5-10 years down the road, we're thinking about where we want our stuff to end up. And the organization of our anthology that we're writing, books are only part of it. We really expect this to be on television one day, all 10 episodes. So that's how we're writing it. That's how we're structuring it. And the book is only part of the play. It's not, if it fails as a book, we'll still turn it into a treatment and try to sell it in, a different way.
Oh, I want to say that today, only for the people listening live, which is almost nobody.
It's the studio.
You're
talking to our people now. I'm aspiratory.
So no live audience, but basically, what is Inglourious Basterds is on sale, $2.99. The script on Amazon today. So, have you gotten it already? Have you read it?
No, I did buy Hateful Eight when it was on sale. But
okay, I might buy this just so I can, because I enjoy the opening of that movie so much.
Oh yeah, I'll buy that right now. I'll buy the shit out of that.
All right. Well, as we shut down, I'll just say again, thanks to those of you who provided questions for this episode. If anybody else, if you have questions, or you want us to try something out, or any of the things you've seen us do, shoot an email to help@sterlingandstone.net, help@sterlingandstone.net. And although we aren't accepting like submissions for our anthologies or anything like that, we are doing our Story Stacks promotions, which are not anthologies, but mutual co-promotions. And you can apply for those and find out more information at sterlingandstone.net/promos. Anything to add before we say goodbye?
Not for me.
It's time to say goodbye.
There's another one. Grab that clip too. We're going to start a best of. Actually, what we should do, since he only sings like a bar from each one, is do one of those. Remember the things they did in the 1980s when they had like 50 songs on 50 CDs and they
Oh my God.
The All-Stars or whatever. Yeah.
And we could do some B-roll video of Dave's, running through a meadow while the song plays.
I would love that. Hey, you guys, serious pitch. Can we watch the just the This Is Us pilot? And no, that's too spoilery for the rest of the world discussing that. Never mind.
All right.
Okay.
But we already lined up. We liked the idea of we're already going to do Watchmen, and Dave pitched Dr. Sleep. If that was a thing we want to do, we can do that too. So
Yeah, I'll see Dr. Sleep.
all right. So thanks everybody for listening, and we will see you next time.
Peace out.